So the Supreme Court just handed Donald Trump the most devastating legal defeat of his entire political career. In a crushing 7-2 decision announced just minutes ago, the justices completely rejected his presidential immunity appeal. And get this, even his own appointees voted against him. But here's what nobody saw coming. Warren Buffett, who's been silent on Trump for years, just broke that silence with a statement that's sending shockwaves through Wall Street and Washington. It's honestly hard to believe he said that out loud. This isn't just about one court case anymore. We're talking about the complete unraveling of Trump's entire legal strategy. And trust me, what happens in the next 72 hours could determine whether he ends up in federal prison. Let me fill you in on what's been happening behind closed doors. So Donald Trump has spent the last 2 years building what his team called an impenetrable legal fortress. Since those federal indictments started dropping in 2023, he's thrown everything at the wall. Executive privilege claims, presidential immunity arguments, even challenging the special counsel's very existence. His legal team, led by folks like Todd Blanche and Chris Key, really cemented themselves as true believers in the idea that a president, especially Trump, should be completely untouchable by the legal system. Whether it was classified documents, January 6th, or election interference, Trump's message was always the same. I was president, therefore I'm immune. But here's where the rubber meets the road. We're now 18 months into these federal prosecutions. Trump's trials are piling up. His legal bills are astronomical. We're talking $100 million and counting. His campaign is essentially a legal defense fund at this point. This mess is unfolding because Trump and the justice system are at a complete standstill over one fundamental question. Can a former president be prosecuted for actions taken while in office? And guess who's stuck right in the middle? Yep, the Supreme Court. The court is supposed to be above politics. But here's the kicker. Trump appointed 3 of the 9 justices, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett. He expected loyalty. He wanted them to save him. And before we go any further, let's be real for a second. The Supreme Court has already shown it's willing to help Trump before just look at some of their previous rulings. But immunity from all prosecution. That's asking them to essentially crown him king. Now, back to the matter at hand. Reports from around October 28th revealed just how confident Trump was about this appeal. He labeled any suggestion that his own justices might rule against him as fake news, and even went as far as to say that real justices understand presidential power. Talk about strong words. Essentially, Trump was calling any justice who might rule against him a traitor to the Constitution, at least his version of it. And this wasn't a private conversation. Trump made sure to air his expectations publicly, holding rallies where he'd remind everyone that he gave the court 3 justices, making it clear that he expected payback. This announcement sent shockwaves through legal circles because it raised all sorts of questions. If Trump, the big guy himself, could pressure the Supreme Court this openly, what did that mean for the independence of our entire judicial system? Now, this isn't the first time we've seen this. Trump's loyalty really only extends to himself. Whenever someone stops being useful or does something he doesn't like, he's quick to turn on them. We've spotted this pattern time and time again. Just think about how he turned on Jeff Sessions right after Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation. One day, Sessions was the greatest. The next, he was disgustingly disloyal and not mentally qualified. Then there was Bill Barr. Trump loved him when Barr was protecting him. But the moment Barr said there was no widespread election fraud, Trump called him a weak and pathetic rhino who failed the American people. And let's not forget how he distanced himself from Mike Pence when Pence refused to overturn the election on January 6th. 40 years of loyalty meant nothing. Trump literally sent a mob after his own VP. Even Kevin McCarthy faced a similar fate when he initially criticized Trump after January 6th. Trump went from calling him my Kevin to threatening to destroy his political career. Now it looks like Trump's own Supreme Court appointees are in the hot seat. This pattern is becoming all too familiar. You can show all the loyalty in the world and defend Trump every single day, but the moment you step out of line or cease to be useful, he'll toss you aside without a second thought. So what did the Supreme Court do to tick off Trump? Well, it all boils down to the Constitution. The case revolved around whether Trump could claim absolute immunity for allegedly criminal acts committed while president. Trump's lawyers wanted the court to rule that presidents are completely above the law while in office and can't be prosecuted even after leaving. The special counsel argued this would essentially make the president a king, not accountable to anyone. Ultimately, the court had to decide if America still believes that no one is above the law. As expected, Trump's legal team decided to take an absolutist stance. They argued total immunity and refused to acknowledge any limits. Their approach seemed to be just demanding the court protect Trump at all costs. At first, during oral arguments, it seemed like some conservative justices might be sympathetic. They asked tough questions about the implications of prosecuting former presidents. But as the weeks dragged on, some issues started cropping up. Legal scholars were pointing out the absurdity of Trump's position. Constitutional historians were explaining how the founders never intended immunity, and even conservative commentators were getting nervous about the president. While Trump's team was steadfast and holding their ground, predictably, the public began to see the danger in his arguments. Polls indicated that Americans were increasingly concerned about the idea that presidents could commit crimes without consequence. This was the moment the justices began to sweat a little. You see, the Supreme Court values its legitimacy, its reputation, and overall its role as guardian of the Constitution. They don't want to be seen as partisan hacks who just protect whoever appointed them. That's definitely not the legacy they seek. And then the court went ahead and made a move that, according to Trump, was a serious misstep. They issued their ruling, and it wasn't even close. The 7-2 decision was devastating. Chief Justice Roberts, writing for the majority, used language that legal experts are calling unprecedented in its directness. But then, when Trump caught wind of all this, he absolutely lost it. In Trump's eyes, ruling against him is just a sign of weakness. Not protecting him, that's pure betrayal. Any justice who dares to apply the law equally is instantly labeled a traitor. Now, this left Trump in a tight spot. On one side, he really needs the court's backing to avoid potential prison time. The federal cases against him are strong, and without immunity, he's facing serious legal jeopardy. On the flip side, he actually has to deal with the reality that even his own appointees won't ignore the Constitution for him. That means facing trial like any other citizen accused of crimes. The tricky part is all of that requires some level of accepting that the law applies to him and following the same legal process as everyone else. So Trump is caught in a bind. He can either keep attacking the court, which means burning bridges with the conservative legal movement and losing any chance of their help in future cases, or he can accept their decision, which means admitting he's not above the law. But that'll definitely make his entire political brand of being the strong man who never backs down look weak. It's a tough situation. And that's the mess Trump creates for himself. He demands complete loyalty and wants everyone to protect him without question. But then he attacks viciously when things go south. He's not shy about tossing even his closest allies under the bus whenever it suits him. This whole scenario is causing major stress within Trump's inner circle. If his own Supreme Court appointees have turned against him and are willing to publicly reject his immunity claims, every Trump ally is left wondering if they're the next target. Those moderate Republicans who were hoping the court would find some middle ground are now worried sick about being associated with Trump's attacks on the judiciary. Meanwhile, the MAGA hardcore believe that justices aren't loyal enough and that they've been corrupted by the deep state establishment. Things became even more intense when Lindsey Graham, one of Trump's most consistent defenders, broke away from Trump's response. He'd been pushing for a more measured reaction to the ruling and criticized Trump for attacking the court so viciously. When someone as aligned with Trump as Graham starts urging caution, you know you're in a world of hurt. The legal response was swift and unanimous. Legal experts across the spectrum are noting that we haven't seen a Supreme Court rejection this decisive since United States v. Nixon. Andrew McCarthy, a conservative legal commentator who often defends Trump, went on Fox News and made a statement that really should catch everyone's attention. He said that this ruling is legally bulletproof. There's no appeal from here. It's the end of the road. Just think about that for a moment. End of the road. And this is coming from a conservative voice on Fox. Alan Dershowitz, who's defended Trump in the past, mentioned that the court's language was devastating to any claim of presidential immunity. When legal experts from both sides start tossing around terms like devastating and end of the road, that's the moment to really pay attention. But wait, there's more. Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha himself, just released a statement through Berkshire Hathaway that nobody saw coming. For context, Buffett has studiously avoided commenting on Trump's legal troubles, focusing instead on markets and business. But this Supreme Court decision apparently crossed a line for him. Here's the scoop on what Buffett said. The Supreme Court's decision today reaffirms what every American business leader knows. No one is above the law. The market depends on the rule of law. When that principle is questioned, it threatens the very foundation of our economic system. He went on to say that investors should take note when anyone, no matter how powerful, claims immunity from legal accountability. This is Warren Buffett. We're talking about a man who's built his reputation on staying above the political fray. For him to weigh in, this strongly suggests he sees real economic danger in Trump's position. Berkshire Hathaway's stock actually jumped 2% in after-hours trading following his statement, suggesting investors agree. So let's break down what this showdown could mean, because it's not just a captivating legal story. It has serious consequences for how our democracy operates. First up is the immediate political fallout. Trump is already facing significant backlash due to multiple indictments, and his favorability ratings are taking a hit. Republican representatives are getting anxious about the upcoming 2024 election, which is definitely adding to the tension. Now he's attacking the Supreme Court, including his own appointees, calling them disloyal and corrupt. And honestly, that's not the best look for him. Most folks in America have a good deal of respect for the Supreme Court as a vital part of our system, even if they don't always agree with its decisions. Democrats are definitely planning to take advantage of this situation. They'll argue that Trump believes he's above the law and does not hold the Constitution in high regard, and they'll have the Supreme Court's own words backing up those claims. This is going to be Exhibit A and proving that Trump views himself as a dictator in waiting. You can expect to see quotes from this ruling popping up in Democratic campaign ads, speeches, and debates. Now, let's touch on what this means for the Supreme Court itself. Chief Justice Roberts has been working hard to keep the court out of partisan battles, wanting it to be viewed as above political influence. But by ruling so decisively against Trump, the court has waded right into a political firestorm. Trump and his supporters are now poised to attack the court, implying bias and questioning their motives, which complicates things for the court's image as a neutral entity. Yet, Roberts probably felt he had no other choice. If the court had sided with Trump on immunity, the court's credibility would take an even bigger hit. This situation shines a massive spotlight on the fundamental principle of American democracy. No one is above the law. At the heart of the issue is whether any president can just claim immunity from prosecution whenever he feels like it. If Trump had gotten his way on that, it could totally change how our constitutional system operates. The founders specifically rejected the idea of a king who couldn't be held accountable. They created a system of checks and balances with the judiciary, able to review executive actions. The idea that presidents could commit crimes without consequence would shatter that entire framework. But Trump has always been uncomfortable with those limitations. He craves total control over everything. If absolute immunity had been granted, that's a significant boost to authoritarian power, and it opens the door for future presidents to commit crimes without fear. So the implications of this case reach far beyond just Trump. It's about shaping the structure of American government for many years to come. Each time Trump brushes aside norms, attacks institutions, or claims he's above the law, it weakens our democratic systems. It starts making behavior that used to be completely unacceptable feel normal. Think about it. If Trump could claim absolute immunity, what's to stop the next president from doing the same? If presidents can just commit crimes whenever they want, what's to prevent another leader from following that lead? These actions don't just disappear when Trump leaves office. They become part of our new reality. And that's pretty dangerous. Democracy relies on those norms and institutions, assuming that people in power will play by the rules, even when it's a bit inconvenient. When those norms crumble, democracy itself starts to falter. looking ahead to the 2024 election, it's clear that all of this is going to have some significant effects. We're still 11 months out from those elections, but the narrative being set now is bound to influence how things go. If the story playing out is one of Trump battling every institution and coming out on the losing side, that spells trouble for Republicans. Voters usually don't reward chaos and dysfunction. They want stability and competence. Right now, Trump isn't offering either of those. So expect Democrats to champion a message focused on restoring the rule of law. After years of chaos under Trump, there are folks who believe that if you vote for them, the Justice Department will actually work independently again. They're promising no more constant constitutional crises or attacks on the Supreme Court, just good old normal governance. That message might just hit home for a lot of voters, including some moderate Republicans. So here's the deal. The Supreme Court just delivered Trump his worst legal defeat, with even his own appointees ruling against him. This isn't just about one court case. It's whether the foundational American principle that no one is above the law still holds true. If Trump's immunity claim had succeeded, then we're basically saying the Constitution doesn't matter anymore. That would mean we're stepping into a completely new realm where presidents can commit crimes without accountability. It's about so much more than just Trump's legal troubles. It's about whether we genuinely have a system of checks and balances or if we're just stuck with whoever can grab the most power. So keep an eye on this. Things are just heating up. With Warren Buffett now weighing in and markets reacting, this story is far from over. The next few weeks are going to be crucial. Trump's legal team has to figure out their next move. His political allies have to decide whether to keep defending him, and his criminal trials are about to accelerate without the immunity shield. The stakes have never been higher, the evidence stronger, and the outcome more unpredictable. We're watching the collision between one man's belief that he's above the law and America's 250-year commitment to the principle that he's not. This is just the